Hello, hopefully we're live on YouTube as well at the moment. So we'll just have to carry on because that's the only way to do it sometimes. So welcome to the Writing Talk podcast, the first episode. So my name is Mikey Campling. I'm a writer of the Darkening Stone books, which apparently is hard to say all of a sudden, and a book of short, dark stories called A Dark Assortment. And I thought I would put this podcast together called the Writing Talk podcast because I like the idea of sending the elevator back down. I'm sure you've heard the concept before. I'm not exactly on the penthouse suite at the moment, but I've managed to crawl out from the basement, and I kind of remember a lot of what that feels like. And I've been aware recently there are lots of people still running about down there. So I'm going to hope to try and help you to climb out of the basement and get on the first rung, perhaps. I'll give you a hand up. I really want to try and spread out as much information as I can. Today it is just me, this being the first episode, but I am working on getting some guests together. So hopefully we'll have a few interesting people around. If you're listening to this and you'd like to be one of those guests, please get in touch. The website for this podcast is called, funnily enough, writingtalkpodcast.com, and Writing Talk Podcast is all one word, so it should be easy to find. And you can contact me from there. There's all my social media links and so on. And I'll go over the contact info again at the end in true broadcasting style. What's it going to be about? Well, I don't really want to try replicating what other people are already doing and doing so much better than me in terms of things like marketing and things like the Sell More Book show. I really want to talk about the business of being a writer, some of the nuts and bolts, and about the craft itself. Having said that, anything you would like me to cover, please let me know. Give me a shout via the website and suggest a topic, and we'll sort it out. If I can't answer it, perhaps I can find a guest for you who can answer your questions and help you out with some of those problems. No question is too small or too silly. Please do feel free to shoot me a question or a suggestion for a topic. This podcast will be available on iTunes and all the usual places as well. I will get that set up as soon as possible. And it is primarily going to be an audio thing, so I'm recording it separately. So they may not even all be on YouTube. We'll see. To be honest, I've spent a lot of the day working on getting this thing going, and I thought I'm going to start broadcasting it live to 0 viewers, perhaps, but at least I'm doing, and it's forcing me to do it and just crack on with it. Because it's interesting when you start something new, you suddenly find you have all these problems. Like, when you're beginning writing, you suddenly think, oh my word, I can't remember how to string words together. And here I am sort of thinking, well, how do I talk? I've lost the power of speech. Okay. So that's probably enough intro blurb for the moment. Today's little topic, I would just like to talk about something I believe in a lot, and that is about having a working attitude to your writing. I guess shorthand for that, you could call it a particular mindset, which is the trendier way of calling it these days, perhaps, but I like the idea of a working attitude. So to start with, if you're out there and you're still referring to yourself on your Twitter profile or something as a hopeful writer, or a writer to be, or an aspiring writer is the one everybody puts, drop that aspiring thing straight away. Just go now. I'll wait. Go do it now, and get rid of that. Because if you're writing something, you're a writer. And I guess what people are really saying when they put these things that try to qualify their activities, they say, well, I'm a chartered accountant and I write in my spare time, sort of thing. Well, yeah, that's true, but that doesn't make you not a writer. You can call yourself a writer. You've earned that privilege, I think, by having a go. So what people are really saying with these qualifying statements is that they are worried that what they've done isn't much good. They're worried that people will look at it and think, okay, it's not good enough. Well, welcome to the club. I'm afraid that insecurity in any creative endeavor, they too go hand in hand. I think everybody who's ever created something different, something original, worries that it will not be as good as others in a similar vein. They worry that it's not as good as their expectations or their hopes and dreams. And I think that's a hurdle to get over, because it will prevent you from cracking on and moving on and improving. So, so, forget that. Think of you call yourself a writer. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not pretentious or anything. Just go for it. What really matters is that you carry on and that you keep at it. Your fears that it's not going to be good enough only matter if you let them matter. So here's the thing that I think is kind of key to this. I don't tend to call what I do an art. I think of it as a craft. A craft is something wonderful to be valued, in any sphere. I'm not denigrating it in any way. It is, though, a collection of skills. And if they are skills, then you can practice them. And if you can practice them, you can improve at them and you can learn them. And eventually, if you really persist and keep on going, then you can master those skills. And how long that takes is up to you. But really, even once you get to a level where you think, okay, I'm good enough now, you can go on and on and on. And that's really what being a craftsman is all about, or craftsperson, sorry. It's about getting better and better and better and just carrying on. It sounds a bit cliche, twee perhaps, but it is a journey. It's not a destination, being a writer. You don't get a thing, nobody comes and gives you a badge and say, okay, you're done now. You're a writer, here you are. So whatever your hopes and aspirations for your writing career are, they are entirely up to you. And how you go about that, I think, works best from the basis of a good, solid working attitude, that you have a job of work to do and you just need to get on with it. If you think of it as some airy-fairy thing and you're waiting for the muse to appear, I'm afraid you may be disappointed, because I haven't met a mythical muse yet. So how do you get into it? How do you start to establish this mindset? There's a lot of nonsense talked about this, I'm afraid. You can, put inspirational quotes up on your wall and all over your computer's desktop, and stick inspirational post-it notes to your forehead, whatever you want to do. But these things are really external cues, and if you rely on those, you're not really facing the battle head on, I don't think. So you'll only really win that battle with your determination, to be a writer, if you internalize that, if it becomes part of who you are and it becomes part of what you do. Again, shorthand, it's quite a popular thing to refer to it as a habit. Yes, that's one way of looking at it. I think that doesn't quite tell the whole story, though. I think a working attitude is more than just a collection of habits. It is a whole mindset, again, going back to that word. Okay, so the external cues, don't over-rely on them. You can put some up for fun, but it's easy to spend, instead of sitting down and starting your work, you think, okay, I'll just put an inspirational quote on a post-it note, and then you spend the next hour looking for those online, and then you've realized that you haven't started, and then you get frustrated and you give up and pull your hair out. So, I've shelved some of those, just put them to one side. They are not particularly important. However, that's not to say that your environment is unimportant. Your environment is very important, and is one of the things that you can manipulate in order to maximize your chances of keeping going. For instance, you can look at the idea of, do you need silence? These things vary from individual to individual, I think. Music is nice for some people. For others, it can be very distracting. Certainly songs with lyrics in. If you're using an app and it has a playlist, you might start mucking about with that instead of getting on. songs change, they can all be distracting. Something that I quite like is the idea of ambient noise. There's Rainy Mood is, I'll put links in the show notes later, is a good website you can use for that. And there's another one which I prefer called Rainy Cafe, where you can have the background of a coffee shop and rain outside as well. And you can swap each level, or you can adjust each level rather, so that you can have a nice background noise as if you're in a coffee shop sheltering from the rain. And that's quite nice because it just sits there on your headphones and blanks out background noise in the house, and it doesn't distract, and it does in fact enable you to focus on what you're really meant to be doing. And in fact, in some ways, I think it stills that little voice at the back of your head that's saying, oh, shall we do this? Shall we just check the email? Shall we just change the tune? Oh, how about this other album? I prefer that album, which, you know, you can get into with music. And that ambient noise just cuts that out. So that works well. It's worth a go, as long as you don't have it on too loud, I think. Yes, you need to get your environment area set up, and I think that can just be very basic. You don't need to, you know, have a special desk or a certain kind of laptop or a certain kind of desktop computer or anything. Really, I heard some really famous writers who I can't remember their names now, but they're on Desert Island Discs here on the radio in the UK, and they, you know, had a 30-year-long career of writing TV comedies, and they were saying that really writing is the one thing that you can't have an excuse for, because all you really need is a pencil and a piece of paper, and so there can be no excuses between you and starting. And that was a really good point. These days there are a plethora of ways of recording your thoughts, from doing speech dictation, voice dictation, to scribbling in notepads, to, you know, jotting on a tablet or a phone or whatever. So I think there's never really an excuse not to just start and be putting down a few extra words. One thing, though, I do think very strongly, and that is you must avoid interruptions. So you will need to perhaps negotiate with people around you that when you're writing, you're not disturbed for whatever reason, unless it's an emergency. And hopefully you can negotiate that wherever you are. This is where being at home or in a working space is better than a coffee shop or something where you can easily be interrupted. So I think that is worth organising. And in fact, I've made a little A4 poster or sign for you if you'd like to go over to writingtalkpodcast.com. I'll get used to it eventually. And you can download that there and stick it on your door that just says, you know, please don't disturb, because writer at work. Another day I will talk about ways of really getting yourself started on the days that you don't feel like writing. I'll cover that in another episode. I'm going to keep this fairly short and sweet for today. Interruptions is something you really must avoid. So shut off your email program, put your phone on silent, shove things in a drawer out of sight so you won't pick them up and actually look at them. That isn't an interruption. That is something beyond your control normally, so you can avoid them as much as possible. Distraction is another thing. That is your fault, really. If you're distracted, it's because you're silly, and we all do it. Again, but you can't say, oh, it's an interruption, I've decided to check my email. No, that's something you've decided to do. That's a distraction. So, okay, you know, you can... again, lots of people have covered these online. There's all different ways of like disabling your internet and so on. Generally, just shutting things down and keeping them out of sight is good to start with. Shutting off your internet access can be problematic if you do something like online backup, like I do. So I don't tend to do that. If you're the person who tends to let yourself be distracted and go down rabbit holes, you know, browsing online and so on for so-called research, then there's a good website you can sign up for called Rescue Time, and you can categorize what you do on your computer, and it will show you at the end of each week. It will say, well done, you've hit your target of not being distracted, or oh dear, you haven't made it. So that's quite good. And again, I will put notes on the website with links, and perhaps we'll come back to that on another podcast as well. Okay, the other thing that is part of this, developing this working attitude, apart from setting your stall out by making sure you're uninterrupted, getting rid of the distractions, and this is much more important than all those things put together, in my opinion. This really is the key thing, and that is to complete things. Again, this is not an original thought. You hear lots of people saying this. That must become your habit. And if you've never done it once, then it can't be. So your first target is to complete whatever you're doing, complete it. If it's too long and you're mired in it and you are never going to get it, then put it to one side and just write a short story or something. Start with something that flash fiction, 100 words, something like that. Finish that. Make it really as good as you can. Polish it and make a really good 100-word short story. And then work your way up. Say, okay, from 100 to 250 to 500 to 1,000, and make sure that whatever you start from this point on, you finish it. And not just you finished it, okay, I've made a rough draft, that's it. You then go back and edit it, polish it, however many times it takes, until what you've got is a nice, satisfying little piece of fiction. And then perhaps you can use it. You can put it on your blog, or you can share it around. If it's short, you can even post the whole thing up on Facebook, copy and paste it. But what you're doing is just getting that first magic ingredient. My first novel took me years to finish. I lost track. I daren't even tell you. I'd be embarrassed to tell you how many years it took to finish the first draft, even, I think. because I wrote it by hand on A4 pads of paper, and then had to type it all up. And then rewritten and rewritten so many times. But, I did finish it, and that was a massive turning point for me. And I did exactly that, because there were times when I struggled. I did exactly what I preached a minute ago. I said, okay, I'm going to write some 100-word short stories. And I just started giving myself that little challenge. Each day I would start off almost like a warm-up exercise by writing a little short story of 100 words. And not 101, no, just exactly 100. Excuse me. So that is about all I'm really going to say today. My take-home message for you is complete things, because that is the key to establishing the mindset. You can't have the mindset of a chef if all you ever do is chop the vegetables and forget to turn the pan on, and so on. You can't be the mindset of a garage mechanic if you take the engine apart and leave the bits on the floor. Whatever you're doing, you have to complete it. And then you really can, with some pride, I think, call yourself a writer. Even if all you've written is 100 words, you will have completed something. And you can build and build from there. And before you know it, you'll have done one novel, 2 or 3 or more, or a collection of short stories or poems or whatever thing you're writing. So I'm going to finish off with a couple of questions, which I'm hoping some people will leave some comments on. The first one is, tell me, please, what you would like me to cover in this program. Tell me both sides of the coin. If you have a really good tip you can share, that would be great, and I will publicize that for you. Tell me also the things that you struggle with, and I will try and answer it, or I will find somebody who jolly well can. So both those things would be great. What should we cover in Writing Talk podcast? The other thing, and you can do both if you want, what do you do that gets you into that mindset? What tricks work for you? What helps you to establish the mindset of a writer? That would be a perfect thing to tell me about. And again, we can share it. I will finish there. That's about 20 minutes. I will hopefully be doing one of these every single week, though not necessarily at this time, because I've spent most of the day trying to get this thing to work properly. So if you're watching on YouTube or listening, whichever way you're managing to grab hold of it, thank you very much. The website for the podcast is writingtalkpodcast.com, and Writing Talk Podcast is all one word. And there's a Facebook page and a Twitter account and a Google Plus account. You can find all those things from the website. If you're thinking, who is this guy and what's he written and what's he talking about and who the heck does he think he is, you can find out more about me at mikeycampling.com. That's M-I-K-E-Y, no C in it. I'm not a Mickey like the mouse. That's mikeycampling.com, and you can find all my stuff there and get in touch with me one way or another. The email address, if just been setting all this stuff up today, is, I think, just Mikey at writingtalkpodcast.com. That will find me. Otherwise, you can grab me by Facebook or Twitter or whichever way is easier for you. It's all good. So thank you very much for watching and or listening. Please do comment and tell me what you'd like to cover, what you'd like me to cover, sorry. And if you have any great ideas for getting into that writing mindset, into that frame of mind where you feel that you can actually crack on and do some good writing. Okay, thank you very much. Goodbye for now.